ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Namaste my dear friends. This is first video on Atma Bodha of Bhagwan Sri Adi Shankaracharya. I start this video from the first stanza. Tapobhi akshin papanam shantanam vitraginam mumukshunam me pekshvaya mamtam bodho vidhiyate. Tapobhi by austerities, akshin papanam for those who have purified themselves, shantanam for those who are calm, vitraginam for those who are free from cravings, mumukshunam for those who are desirous of liberation, apeksha worthy of attending. I am this Atma Bodha knowledge of the self, vidhiyate being composed by me. I am composing the Atma Bodha, this treatise of the knowledge of the self, for those who have purified themselves by austerities and are peaceful in heart and calm, who are free from cravings and are desirous of liberation. As a preamble, Sri Shankara, the great world teacher, himself a person of full realization, lays down certain qualifications for those who wish to take up the study of this text. The stanza also indicates the four aspects of the theme discussed, technically called as the Anubandha Chatushtayam. Such an introduction is justified when we recognize that Sri Shankara was prescribing here an easy textbook, as he himself was a true educationist. He knew what type of students he has in his mind to whom he wanted to deliver the lessons. A high-sounding style, erudite discussions, elaborate argumentations, etc. would be useless in serving the ordinary students who have discovered in themselves a growing enthusiasm to understand a little of the Vedantic philosophy. In the stanza, the term Atma Bodha suggests the subject dealt with the word mumukshu, seeker of burning aspirations, suggests that the object aimed at is the emancipation of the individuality from all its sense of bondage, and those who are fit for the study of this text are those who have all the four qualifications: A. Discrimination of the real and the unreal. B. Detachment from the unreal. C. The sixfold wealth of goodness, such as calmness, etc. And lastly, D. The compelling desire for self-rediscovery. One can claim to have read volumes of books and exhausted a library full of the printed matter from its shelves, yet he may still be useless in the practical application of his knowledge. In the study of philosophy, a mere book knowledge will be ineffective when the man of study enters the field of activities. Every earnest seeker must digest the knowledge gained until they grow in him into convictions which can then be translated into actions. When a book is written by a teacher, it is always intended for a certain type of students he has in his mind. Every textbook is addressed to a certain class of students having some qualities. They alone will be most benefited by that given textbook. In the opening stanza of the Atma Bodha, Shankara is trying to explain who are to be his audience, whom alone he is addressing in this tiny book. Every attempt at living in self-control in all our contacts with the outer world, wherein all the efforts are dedicated for the high purpose of evolving ourselves into a diviner being, is called tapas. From pilgrimage and fasting to japa and dhyana, all spiritual endeavors at self-control are different types of tapas. Through these methods, one's sins, papas, become weaker. Sin is not an action in itself, but it is the tendency, vasana, to live and think negatively, which is left over in our mind as a result of our own wrong actions. These sinful tendencies become weak when for a time we practice self-control. When we have thus quietened our physical agitations through conscious and divinely dedicated self-control, tapas, the natural result is a growing sense of calmness in the bosom. And when a mind has thus calmed down in it, the rate of fluctuations created by desires and attachments will also get reduced to a minimum. An individual who has thus a weakened his wrong tendencies through tapas, b, who has consequently found in himself a relatively greater mental calmness, c, in whom the desire agitations are temporarily at rest, if he be d, one who is a sincere seeker wanting to liberate himself from his non-personality shackles felt in his own within, he is the one who is fit for the study of the Atma Bodha. This stanza does not disqualify anyone from reading and studying the text, but only suggests items of inner adjustments by which a student can make himself better tuned up to the contents of this book and come to understand better the theme discussed in it. Stanza number 2. बोधो अन्य साधनेभ्यो हि साक्ष्य अन्यो अक्षि साधनम पाक्ष वही वज्ञानम बिना मोक्षो न सिद्धति. Both knowledge of the self, अन्य साधनेभ्य, in comparison with other contributory causes. He indeed saksat, direct, moksik sadhanam, the one means for liberation, pakse, for cooking, vannihivat, just as the fire, jnanam, knowledge, bina, without, moksha, emancipation, nay not, siddhati, to be accomplished. Just as the fire is the direct cause for cooking, so without knowledge, no emancipation can be had. Compared with all other forms of discipline, knowledge of the self is the one direct means for liberation. In the previous stanza, having stated so much about the need for the practice of austerities and self-control, its etc., one may misunderstand from it that discipline alone may lead one to the goal divine. To remove that misunderstanding, it is stated that knowledge alone is the one direct means for liberation. The example given here and in almost every one of the subsequent verses is to illustrate the case in point as clearly as possible to the new entrant in the field of Vedanta. In cooking food, items such as vegetables, rice, spices, etc. are contributory causes, but by themselves they can never constitute food. Fire alone can accomplish the cooking. Fire is the direct cause. Similarly, the performance of rituals, the offering of gifts, the practice of austerities, control of the mind, the study of the scriptures, the use of the discriminative intellect are all, no doubt, helpful factors which aid one's spiritual growth, but they do not by themselves directly lead one to liberation. Liberation is possible only when the true knowledge of our own existence is realized or the glory of our self rediscovered. This point is elaborated in the next stanza. Stanza number 3. Avirodhitaya karam na vidyam vinivartyet vidya avidyam nihantev tejasmis sanghavat. Avirodhitaya, for not being opposed to ignorance, karm action, nay not, avidyam ignorance, vinivartyet destroys, vidya knowledge, avidyam ignorance, nihanti destroys, ev verily, tejah light, timir sanghavat as deep darkness. Action cannot destroy ignorance, for it is not in conflict with or opposed to ignorance. Knowledge does verily destroy ignorance as light destroys deep darkness. Why is it not possible for the austerities and discipline to give what knowledge can offer us? The word knowledge is used here in a figurative sense. The attainment of knowledge really means the rediscovery of the self in us which has never been known existent. It is like the dreamer gaining the knowledge of the waker, then alone can the dreamer's dream sorrows end. If the Atman be, as described in the scriptures, ever present, all pervasive and complete, etc., then it is not to be striven for and obtained from somewhere, because it is already within us. Therefore, even divine actions do not, in the sense of a direct cause and effect, lead to the knowledge of the self. It only helps to clean the inner equipments of perception, the mirror in which we can see the true and the real nature of our own self. Supposing there is a room in darkness, sweep it for hours, or let an army of men carry the darkness in baskets and pour it out, the room will be still in darkness. Sweeping is not the right method of removing darkness. Now let us take a light in our hand and enter the dark chamber. However thick the darkness be, in a moment it will be illumined. Similarly, the ignorance, ajnana, in us that envelops the pure light of knowledge has seemingly veiled it as though covered with ignorance. The luminous consciousness, the self, is ever bright, and the enveloping ignorance has only to be brushed aside. Remove the misunderstanding about our true nature, and the Atman stands revealed. One need not discover it somewhere, but one has only to remove the veil of ajnana when it is rediscovered. In this sense only it is stated here that action cannot destroy ignorance. Knowledge alone is the antidote for ignorance. Stanza number 4. Prichin इव ज्ञानात्तन्नाशेऽस्ति केवलः स्वं प्रकाशते हय्यात्मा मेघापायेषुमानिव. Prichinne, finite, iv, as if, ajnanat, because of ignorance, tat, that, nase sati, when destroyed, kevalah, alone, swam, by itself, prakashate, reveals, he, verily, atma, the self, megha, clouds, apaye, when pass away, anshuman, the sun, iv, like. The soul appears to be finite because of ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed, the self, which does not admit of any multiplicity, truly reveals itself by itself, like the sun when the clouds pass away. Practically, the same main idea contained in the last stanza is elaborated here, when it was stated that knowledge alone destroys ignorance. It suggested that mere ritualistic actions in themselves could not bring about the desired result. We need not make the sun shine by any means whatsoever. It is ever bright, high up in the sky, by itself illumining the world all the seasons round. It is the passing clouds that hide the vision and glory of this life-giving luminary, the sun. As the clouds pass away, the sun behind gets revealed. The sun is infinite. There is in fact no multiplicity or plurality in that one homogeneous being, the wielder of all destiny. But it is because of our misunderstanding and the consequent superimpositions that we come to labor under the ignorance about this Supreme Being. It alone exists as the illuminator, and it alone makes its presence known by its life-giving powers. Truly, therefore, this Atman in its supreme glory is unparalleled in its existence and reveals in its own Sat Chit nature by itself. Those who are qualified to experience this truth are those who have no clinging attachment to the enchanting objects of the world outside. Stanza number 5. Agyan kalusham jivam jnana abhyas sadhi nirmalam kritva jnanam swam nashe jalam kat karenu vat. Agyan kalusham, stand by ignorance, jivam, jivatma, the self that has been contaminated by ignorance, jnana abhyasat, from constant practice of knowledge, vinirmalam, pure, kritva, having made, jnanam, knowledge, swam itself, nashet, disappears, jalam, water, kat karenu vat, as the powder of the katka nut. Constant practice of knowledge purifies the self jivatman. Stand by ignorance and then disappears itself as the powder of the katka nut settles down after it has cleansed the muddy water. An individual is here in this stanza defined as the self that has been contaminated by the ignorance. Spiritual ignorance gives rise to the agitations of the intellect and the blabberings of the mind. The mind-intellect equipment reflects the light of consciousness, and the self thus conditioned in the mind and intellect is the individuality jiva. The one suffering the limitations of matter is this ego, which is comparable with our own reflections that we see in mirrors. It is but natural that we look distorted if the reflecting surfaces are concave or convex. The ugliness of our reflections can end only when the reflecting surfaces are either destroyed or straightened. The perversions of the individual can be ended only when the mind intellect has become steady and clean. An absolutely cleaned and steadied mind is no more a mind, since mind is but the thought flow. Where the mind has ended, there the ego center, perceived so long existing as an individuality sense, rebounds back to its original nature, the self. The quietness of the mind and the ultimate sublimation of all its thought currents is a single process accomplished by meditation, jnana abhyasa. The process of negating our identifications with the false matter envelopments and asserting our divine spiritual nature constitute the art of meditation, and this process is later on explained exhaustively in the stanzas that follow in this very same textbook. If the continuous memory of I am the matter is the ego center, no doubt it can be replaced by another constant thought current as I am the self. But then there is again a continuous flow of thought, and therefore even that experience, vritti jnanam, is only a conditioned and finite one which cannot be absolute. This doubt is answered in the stanza under discussion when it says that meditation, after having sublimated the mind, ends itself. Our attempts to sleep ends when we start sleeping. The example given here is of the cleaning nut, the powder of which was used in ancient India for cleaning muddy water. During the rainy season, when the well or river waters were all muddy, they used to put the katka dust or the surface of the water in their buckets. The powder becomes slightly slimy and forms a continuous film. Being denser, it settles down, carrying along with it all the minute particles of dirt held suspended in the water. In this process, not only the dirt goes down, but the agent we had used also settles down, leaving the clear water in the bucket, which can be decanted and used. In modern times, we use in towns a little alum which also acts much the same way. Stanza number 6. संसारः स्वपन तुल्यो ही राग द्वेषादि संकुलः सब काले सत्यवद भाति प्रबोधे सत्यम सद भवेत्. Sansara, the world, Sopan Tulle, like a dream, he verily, Rag Dvesadi Sankula, full of attachments, aversions, etc. Sab Kale, in its duration, Satyavat to be real, Bhati appears, Prabodhe Sati, when awake, Asat unreal, Bhavet appears. The world, which is full of attachments, aversions, etc., is like a dream. It appears to be real as long as it continues, but appears to be unreal when one is awake, that is, when true wisdom dawns. It is common knowledge that in a dream the mind creates for itself a fanciful existence. Unfulfilled desires, passions, and emotions which we carry in our minds when we go to bed often show themselves in our dreams. That's why he who has a balanced mind and who has brought his mind well under control, who is not tossed by anger, pride, and petty jealousies, likes and dislikes, does not wander away into wild dreams created by his feeble mind. It is the weak person that is a victim of this unhealthy sign of unfulfilled desires and thoughts. In the dream world, we have a variety of experiences. In the waking state also, experiences exist, but we are not prepared to accept the waking state as a prolonged dream. The reason is the firm grip which avidya has over us, preventing us from accepting the reality of the real. We are not fully qualified ourselves to understand and realize the ephemeral nature of the existence of the objects around us and of our own exact relationship with our body, mind, and intellect. The dream is quite real to us so long as we are in it. When once we wake up from it, we realize the unreality of the entire experience. Similarly, when once we go deep into the layers of the matter envelopments and experience the all-pervading spirit, the pluralistic existence rolls off and we feel awakened to that supreme self which alone is therefore experienced as the real. Therefore, awake from the unreal existence by tearing asunder the ignorance avidya that is covering the real knowledge, and let us realize the blissful nature of our own self. Stanza number 7. ताव सत्यम जगत भाति शक्ति का रजतम यथा यावन्न ज्ञायते ब्रह्म सर्वा अधिष्ठान द्वयम. Tavat as a correlative of Yavat, so long as Satyam true, Jagat sansar. Bhati appears, Shukti ka rajatam, silver in the mother of pearl, Yatha like, Yavat as a relative of Tavat, as long as Ne not Gyayate is realized, Brahma, Sarv Adhishtanam, the substratum for all, Advayam, one without a second. The Jagat appears to be true, Satyam, so long as Brahma, the substratum, the basis of all this creation is not realized. It is like the illusion of silver in the mother of pearl. Jagat is not to be understood as the gross outer world only, as we usually conceive it to be. It is the total experience of an individual in the three states of existence, the waking, dream, and the deep sleep states, experienced through the different types of equipments, physical, mental, and intellectual. In short, Jagat includes the world of objects cognized for enjoyment as forms, smells, etc., through the sense organs as feelings and emotions experienced by the mind, and as ideas and ideologies lived by the intellect. The total experiences gained through our gross, subtle and causal bodies is Jagat. As long as one has not entered into the divine state of God consciousness through the realization of the one absolute truth, which is the substratum for all, Sarvadhistam, which pervades all manifestations, so long does the Jagat appear to be very true and fully real. As long as we are in the dream state, we cannot disbelieve that the dream we are experiencing is unreal. When once we get up from the dream, we do not again mourn for what we might have lost in the dream or rejoice over what we might have gained therein. Also, just as on waking up all the variety experienced in the dream state vanishes to become one with the waking mind, so too on our spiritual awakening, all the plurality of this multiple world and all our different experiences will merge into that one supreme essence, the substratum for everything. When we have realized this supreme truth and have begun to experience the presence of the eternal God principle, the infinite reality, the highest plane of pure consciousness which runs in and through us and everywhere, we no more mistake the Jagat as real or as existing apart from that. Just as we no more mistake the mother of pearl to be a silver piece when we have once recognized its worthless calcium content. In the illusion of a snake on a rope, without the rope, the substratum, the superimposition of the snake is impossible. Likewise, without the self, the supreme, which is immortal, imperceptible, and changeless, and which is referred to here as the substratum adhishtan, even the delusion of a Jagat is not possible. Stanza 8. Upadane akhil dhare jaganti parmesware sarg sithiti yat budbudani varini. Upadane, which is the material cause. Akhila dhare, which is the sport of everything. Jaganti, the words. Parmeshware, in the Supreme Self. Sarg Sthiti Yan, rising, existing, and dissolving. Yanti, pass away. Budbudani, bubbles, like Varini, in the water. Like bubbles in the water, the worlds rise, exist, and dissolve in the Supreme Self, which is the material cause and the prop of everything. The Hindu thinkers of the past seem to have given a more serious attention to the principle of creation than many of the other religionists. Their acute analytical approach to problems of life can, in its thoroughness and completeness, beat even many of the modern scientific methods. Nothing new is ever created by anyone. The change of forms, name, nature, and conditions is all that is creation. Reconversion alone is creation. In thus creating a thing, three essential factors are necessary and they are together in their aggregate called as the cause. In any creation, three types of causes must come into play: the material cause, the efficient cause, and the instrumental cause. In the case of a potter making a pot on his wheel with mud, the potter is the efficient cause, the wheel is the instrumental cause, and the mud is the material cause. Upadana Karana. In all pot creations in the world, the potter is separate from the mud in the creative process of the finite emerging from the infinite. The material cause and the efficient cause are one and the same. Just as bubbles in water are but water rising in water, existing in water, and when they burst, merging back to become water, so too are the plurality cognized by the body, mind, intellect, all a play of names and forms upon the infinite consciousness, the eternal substratum divine. But the Supreme Brahma undergoes no change. It being absolute, it can suffer no modification in itself. How can then the world of multiplicity originate from that Brahma? It can only be an appearance. There is no real manifestation, surely no factual creation. Stanza number 9. सच्चिदात्म न्यू श्रूयते नित्ये विष्णु परकल्पितः वक्तयो विविध्या सर्वा हाटके कटकादिवत् सच्चिदानंद आत्मनि whose nature is existence, intelligence, anusayute, which is all pervading, nitya, eternal, Vishnu, upon Vishnu, one whose stride is the largest, parkalpitaha, projected by imagination, vaktavya, manifested, vividha, manifold, sarvaha, all heart ke, out of gold, katka divate, just as bracelets and other ornaments. All the manifested world of things and beings are projected by imagination upon the substratum which is the eternal. All pervading Vishnu, whose nature is existence, intelligence, just as the different ornaments are all made out of the same gold. An ordinary gross mind can never lift itself up to grasp easily the subtle truths of the highest Vedanta. Very frequently, innumerable examples are to be repeated to push the subtle philosophical ideas into the comprehension of an ordinary intellect. When they are quite apt, the students become pleasantly aghast at the revelations and the truth becomes more and more clear to them. In any creation, there must be, as we have already noted, three fundamental and separate causes. A. The material cause or the raw material. B. The instrumental causes, the equipment with which the object is created. And C. The efficient cause, the intelligence that creates or works at the material with the instruments. In all creations, the three causes exist separately and the material cause transforms itself into the created new thing. But in the case of the creation of the world, the objects created are not different from the creator. The material cause, the one supreme Paramatman itself, manifest as different objects, for in the infinitude of its existence there cannot be a second infinite. The waves in the ocean cannot claim a separate existence apart from the waters of the ocean. Likewise, this outer world and our own world of experiences in the physical, mental, and intellectual spheres rise from, exist in, and merge back into that one supreme awareness which glows in everybody, and like the bubbles that forms and burst upon the surface of the water, different experiences in different bosoms rise and fall before that one consciousness. Here Vishnu is not to be understood as the four-armed divine deity of the Trinity as the Puranas often describe. No doubt, when we conceive of a shape of the pens to the gold, when a gold ring goes out of shape, or even when the ring is melted, so too, even when the entire universe tumbles down, nothing happens to the eternal reality. It is ever changeless, immutable. Stanza number 10. यथा आकाशो हर्षिकेशो नाना उपाधि गतो विभु तद्वेभदा दिव्नवद भाति तन्नाशे केवलो भवेत. यथा, just as, आकाश है, space है, हृषिकेश, the omnipresent truth, nanopadhigata, associated with various conditionings, vibhu, the all pervading, tad vidhat, an account of their upadhis, manifold nature distinct from each other, bhinnav bhati, appears to be diverse, tanna se, on the destruction of these upadhis, kevala hai, one bhavet becomes. The all-pervading akasha appears to be diverse on account of its association with various conditionings, upadhis, which are different from each other. Space becomes one on the destruction of these limiting adjuncts, so also the omnipresent. Truth appears to be diverse on account of its association with the various upadhis and becomes one on the destruction of these upadhis. Behind all this seeming multiplicity of existence and the manifold nature of our experience, the one unchanging substratum persists in all its splendor. This we variously call as the Brahma, the Paramatman, the Sat Chit Ananda, etc. This Supreme Being alone is the dynamic truth, and no differentiation is possible in this state of absolute reality. How then do we come to feel the plurality in the outer world of innumerable objects which we experience now as so real? If the spirit that pulsates through all the objects in and around us is that one without a second, why this conflict is being created by the perception of plurality in us? We discover the necessary courage to inquire in this fashion because we are not prepared to accept all statements of truth merely because they had been declared by the ancient and the learned. Both our head and heart must assimilate any new idea before they can become really our own. And in fact, then alone can these philosophical ideas readily reach out hard to guide us in our day-to-day life and its transactions. The word Hrishikesha can be interpreted both in its mythological tradition as well as in its ancient uses. Taking it as Haris plus Kesha, it means one whose hair is made short. In the battlefield at Kurukshetra, we meet the Lord with all his curly hairs rolled up or clipped. In the ancient sense, the term Hirsikesa can be dissolved as Hirsika plus Isa, Hirsikesha. No doubt, Hirsika is an old and obsolete word meaning sense organs, and so the epithet means Lord of our sense organs. The sense organs can function only so long as the life exists in us. So long as the self, which is the Lord of the senses, reigns in this body, so long only are we enabled to see, smell, touch, speak, etc. It is the one and only spark of life that pervades everything. Without the flow of its enlivening spirit, nothing will operate in this body or exist in the outside world. That principle of life, that universal spirit, that all pervading Brahma is worthily called Vibhu, meaning the all pervading. This all pervading Vibhu truth, the Brahma, appears to be the pluralistic world as we have many times stated because of the various conditionings, upadhis, through which it functions. For example, we construct different rooms in the vast open space akasa, and then we recognize distinct compartments in the one space as the drawing room, the bedroom, living room, etc. And then we ourselves come to treat the one akasa as a multiple factor. We consider the numerous small spaces created by such a division as so many different room spaces. But when the walls are pulled down, the room spaces having separate individual existence, and but thereby the akasha in none of them is destroyed. The room spaces become the one all space. Similarly, when an individual ego associates with its various limiting factors, upadhis, the cause for this world of plurality comes to manifest. When once these forces of limitation are destroyed, the one truth that is the basis of existence for everything shines forth as the one sun of all the world, and it, the one dynamic truth of life, is rediscovered as functioning through all the existence. Without it, there is no existence, and with this Vibhu, everything comes to exist. The Atman is one and the same before and after its realization, but when it groans under certain imaginary limitations, all due to the wrong estimation of the distorting mind, we superimpose upon it certain upadhis, and when these false limitations are removed, it is realized and rediscovered as the one self, ever dwelling everywhere. At this stage, I end this video, and the next video number 2 will start with stanza number 11 of Atma Bodha of Bhagwan Sri Adi Shankaracharya. Namaskar.